Paddington in Peru is the third installment in the now beloved family movie franchise and follows the title character, Paddington the bear, traveling to Peru in search of his Aunt Lucy who has gone missing. If I'm being completely honest, I never saw the first two Paddington movies until like a month ago. I had heard all of the praise for this franchise, but I had never sit down and watched both films for myself. The first one I really liked. There are some problems here and there, but overall it is a very good and very enjoyable family film. The second one? If you've seen the Nicolas Cage movie from 2022, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, my reaction to Paddington 2 was Nicolas Cage's reaction. It is hands down one of the best family films I have ever seen in my entire life. I was smiling throughout the entire thing. So after seeing both films back to back, I was actually really excited to see what Paddington in Peru would do. And overall, this is yet another really good, really clever film in this franchise. I'm pretty sure everything that I love about the Paddington franchise as a whole is represented in this film. First of all, Paddington himself is one of the best characters ever put into any family franchise. He is so polite, so innocent, and even though he can be clumsy at times, it never comes off as mean. He's just kind of a naive character that's trying to do his absolute best. And that's really inspiring, not just to the characters around him, but also to the audience. Even the effects used on Paddington are actually really good. He's not 100% realistic, but he's extremely detailed. You can see every single fur on his face. And because of that, he's not only an extremely likable character, but also an incredibly adorable character. As for the family in this franchise, the Browns, they've always been sort of a mixed bag in my eyes. Don't get me wrong, they're not bad characters by any means, and there's plenty of times in the franchise where they get laughs, especially the father, Mr. Brown. They are the biggest kids movie formula of this franchise. They more or less just have one blatant personality. All of their character arcs are foreshadowed extremely heavily in the first act of the film and come back very obviously in the last act. But again, even though they're not fantastically written characters, I would not call them bad characters by any means, because I still enjoy seeing them, but the characters that have always surprised me in this franchise are the villains. In all three Paddington films, it would be so easy to just make the villains bland and boring in one note, but they find ways to make each of them unique and funny. And I will not give away who the villain of this film is because I don't know if the trailers gave it away, but they follow in the both interesting and hilarious paths of Nicole Kidman in the first film and Hugh Grant in the second one. Not only is the writing surrounding their character extremely funny, but their relation to the plot as a whole is actually extremely interesting. Their motivation involves a lot of legacy in terms of their family history, and you get to see that interesting psychology in relation to their legacy displayed very visually in some really creative ways in this film. Is this the best villain of the franchise? I don't know if I would say that because Hugh Grant in the second film is just so drop-dead hilarious, but I could say that this is the most thematically interesting villain of the franchise. The comedy, as always in this franchise, is really funny. There are some really good sight gags and written gags, and jokes that really come together thanks to some fantastic acting and some really good editing. That being said, I've never been a fan of the slapstick in this franchise. It's always been kind of hit or miss. That said, the slapstick moments in this franchise have never gone on for too long that they become, pun not intended, unbearable. But still, there's some good slapstick, there's some bad slapstick, but overall the comedy in this film is really good. And it pairs well with the heart of the film, which, again, just like the previous two films, there was a great big smile on my face throughout, and like the second one, I did tear up. I would weirdly say that my biggest flaw with the film is that the narrative is very narrow. The film doesn't spend much time meandering, it's just focused on finding Aunt Lucy and following all the clues, which is not a bad thing until you compare it to, say, Paddington 2. In Paddington 2, yes, there is a straightforward narrative and mystery, but at the same time, you got to see Paddington interact with the world around him. When he's in prison and you get to see him make all the lives of the inmates around him better and they become better people because of him. And I wanted to see him interact with the world around him in a similar way, but in this film with the jungle. I wanted to see his more sophisticated and compassionate way of acting correlate to a lot of the wildness of the jungle. A jungle jungle, which he has since left and is now returning to. And while that's sprinkled in, that's never a focus of the film. So yeah, even though I wouldn't call this the best of the franchise, and if I'm being completely honest, I might call it the worst of the franchise, worst is really relative. This is still, overall, an extremely entertaining film for both kids and families alike. Although I feel like more could have been done with the story, it's still a very clever film and a very wholesome film overall. I'm gonna give Paddington in Peru a B. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys really are the best, and don't forget to click subscribe and click that bell icon down below to stay up to date on all things movie, all things TV, all things nerd.